some of the hundreds of thousands of victims of genocide in Bosnia, 13 years after they were dumped in mass graves.
It's a very typical pattern of radiating fractures that you get from shrapnel, bullet, that sort of thing.
Going back to the right humerus.
Now, experts are assembling the pieces so that people like Kada Hotic can finally give her brother Mustafa a proper burial.
Mustafa's body was found without the head. There is a possibility it might be found in some other mass grave. If they can't find the head, we might have to bury him without it.
Unlike the Holocaust, unlike Cambodia, in Bosnia, the media was there in full force. Genocide was on the front page. I was there, and day after day, I reported the story.
The international community says there'll be no military intervention to stop this.
Now, in the era of 24-hour cable news, no one could say, we didn't know. In March 1992, Yugoslavia was already breaking up along ethnic lines when Bosnia-Herzegovina declared independence. Bosnia's Serbs, Orthodox Christians, wanted their own state, and they went to war for it. Their principal victims were Bosnia's Muslim population. The Bosnian Serbs attacked parts of the capital, Sarajevo, to force the Muslims out. They destroyed mosques, they burned books, and they systematically raped Muslim women and girls.
And now the people here truly believe the world has abandoned them.
Richard Holbrooke was the consummate Washington insider. He had been an assistant secretary of state under President Carter, managing editor of the magazine Foreign Policy, and a Wall Street banker. Anxious to once again be a player in foreign policy and moved by the suffering in Bosnia, Holbrooke thought the solution was obvious: a US-led intervention to stop the Serbs.
I felt we had a moral obligation, and American leadership in the world was also at stake.
While the world called the Serbs' destruction of Muslim communities ethnic cleansing, Richard Holbrooke called it genocide. When you said genocide, you also must have known that that did carry moral and legal obligations under international law.
Yes, of course. Everyone understood that. You can't call it genocide and then do nothing about it.
When the bloodshed began, the major European countries vowed to resolve the crisis, and President George Bush vowed to stay out.
The United States is not going to inject itself into every single crisis, no matter how heartrending.
The UN had banned arms sales to the region to reduce the violence. This left the Muslims practically defenseless against the Bosnian Serbs, who had heavy weapons from their patrons in Yugoslavia. Instead of lifting the arms embargo, the UN Security Council sent in a peacekeeping force. Its mandate was to get relief supplies to the victims, not to stop their killers. In July 1992, reporters learned about Serb concentration camps in Bosnia. Muslim prisoners were tortured, sexually mutilated, and executed. These images hadn't been seen in Europe since the Holocaust. In prime time, they stirred U.S. public opinion, but not enough to change U.S. policy.
We are not going to get bogged down in some guerrilla warfare. And I don't care what the pressures are.
So you were here in August of '92. Appalled by the atrocities, Richard Holbrooke went to Bosnia as a member of a refugee relief organization. He wanted to see for himself.
What was it that you saw here?
People were lined up, and there were soldiers with weapons everywhere.
Here, in the city of Banja Luka, he saw Bosnia's Serbs forcing the Muslims to sign over their property in exchange for their lives and a one-way ticket out of town.
And I thought, Christian, I'm seeing a color remake of the black and white scenes we'd seen in World War II of Jews signing away their property at the point of a gun and then being shipped off to who knows where.
Holbrooke's own Jewish grandfather had fled Germany in 1933 as Hitler came to power. Did it resonate with your own family experience?
I don't think you have to be Jewish to understand that what you're seeing was a genuine crime against humanity.
Ending the crime, Holbrooke thought, might require the U.S. to bomb Serb military targets inside Bosnia.
I took the stand that I believed was correct. I didn't think it was so controversial.
In that summer of '92, Holbrooke was supporting Bill Clinton's presidential campaign, offering advice on Bosnia.
We may have to use military force. I would begin with air power against the Serbs.
Holbrooke had his eye on a job in a Clinton administration. But in the back of his mind, a lingering question.
Will he do as president what he said he would do as candidate?
December 1992. Bosnia's capital, Sarajevo, was under attack. The Bosnian Serbs shelled the city, cut the power, and blocked the roads. Snipers were everywhere.
It may already be too late to save tens of thousands of people.
I was there, reporting on the siege, a ruthless 3-year attempt to drive the Muslims out of their multi-ethnic city.
So up there, that's where all the guns were.
Richard Holbrooke, then a Wall Street banker, made his second trip to Bosnia. At Serb checkpoints, he had to use a fake UN identity card.
Why did you make these trips that involved faking IDs, sneaking in? What motivated you so much?
People weren't paying attention. I didn't go to solve the problem because I was a private citizen, but there was a sense of bearing witness.
What he saw appalled him. UN peacekeepers powerless even to bring food to starving people because they had to negotiate with Bosnian Serb militias.
They should have shot their way in if necessary, and had they shot their way in, the Serbs would have melted away because they were thugs and bullies.
Bill Clinton, who had campaigned on a promise of tough action, was about to enter the White House. And Holbrooke wanted to be the new president's point man on Bosnia. In a memo to Clinton's top advisors, Holbrooke again recommended direct use of force against the Serbs.
And by advocating vigorous action, I was kind of marginalized.
Instead of getting Bosnia, Holbrooke was named U.S. ambassador to Germany.
You were basically, for want of a better term, screaming bloody murder, and they weren't listening.
Well, I was very frustrated, but the political pressures were running the other way.
The European allies opposed airstrikes,